Good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. It's a little after 7. It's great to have everyone here tonight, and welcome to our session this evening on job search preparedness for experienced professionals. My name is Joe Pydrofite. I'm a 2006 undergrad of UMass, and I'm also a 2020 MBA graduate. And I'm a regional alumni officer here in our alumni relations office. Also with me tonight is my colleague, Lindsay McGrath, Director of Student and Young Alumni Programs. Hey, Lindsay, if you want to give a little wave. And she's a 2018 graduate with a master's degree in education. So tonight, our panelists are going to share some tips and best practices to help you prepare for your job search. And we hope that you will use this information in conjunction with some other resources available to you through the Alumni Association. And Lindsay and I will provide a link to those later on. And also after the presentations, we'll have some time for Q&A. So speaking of Q&A, please use the chat box to ask your questions. Lindsay and I, again, will be monitoring it throughout the night, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. Thank you in advance for those of you that submitted questions in advance. Our panelists are able to sort of address some of those during their presentation, which is going to be great. So again, if you have a question, please submit it in the chat box, and we will get to them, or as many as we can during the Q&A. So one last housekeeping note, your cameras and microphones have been turned off, as you can probably see. That was on purpose, so that was by design, so we don't get any crazy noises or anything like that. And then also this session is being recorded, so by participating you are consenting to being recorded. Once the presentation has been captioned post-event, we will send everyone a link to view the recording. Okay, so at this point, I would like to bring up and introduce you all to our panelists. So first we have Emily Hawarny. She's a 2010 graduate and is a career counselor at Texas State University and a licensed professional counselor in the state of Texas. Emily also is an adjunct faculty member at St. Edward's University, teaching career development and planning in their graduate counseling program. She holds a bachelor's degree in journalism from UMass and a master's degree in counseling from St. Edward's University. In addition, Emily proudly served in the Peace Corps Philippines from 2010 to 2012. Next, we have Rochelle Jean-Louis, class of 98. She is a senior talent acquisition specialist at Babson College. She earned a bachelor's degree in sociology from UMass. Rochelle's career in human resources began over 18 years ago with Harvard Business Publishing, where she held various roles within HR. She quickly realized that she had a passion for recruiting and a love for connecting people with opportunities that aligned with their goals and values. To further pursue this passion, Rochelle joined the Mentor Network, a nationwide human services company. And finally, also joining us tonight, we have Bob McIntosh, who is a 1987 and 96 graduate. And Bob is a career trainer and certified professional resume writer who leads more than 20 unique job search workshops and webinars at Mass Hire Lowell Career Center. Bob also meets with high-level job seekers on an individual basis to critique their resumes and LinkedIn profiles, conduct mock interviews, and provide salary negotiation advice. He's a recognized LinkedIn authority and was awarded one of LinkedIn's top voices in 2019. Bob's greatest pleasure is helping people find rewarding careers in a competitive job market. You can read his blog, Things Career Related, or check him out on LinkedIn. So we are going to go ahead and get started, and I believe, Emily, you are up first.
Okay. All right. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about today first, before we get to maybe some more of the specific tools that are needed in the job search is to talk about the confidence you need in a career transition. So first thing we know, especially right now, things are challenging and may continue to be challenging for a little bit of time here. So it's really important to keep that confidence, to keep that resilience high. And so attitude and resilience and confidence are going to go a long way in this search. You also want to be taking inventory of your strengths and your support system. So this is a really important time to reflect on all the various strengths that you have, you know, whether you're going to write them down in a journal or type them up, or maybe you've been consistently adding them on LinkedIn all this time, but really reflect and look at those strengths and how you can use those in this transition. But also, because the career transition can be challenging at times, it's really important to know who is in our support system. So whether that is someone that you can talk to through this experience, or even networking, which I know we talk about later on as well. So one thing to consider is to look at your narrative about your life and your life story, and look at how you want to reframe that in regards to your career transition. So really look at what are your values and what are your goals. This is really important because sometimes when we're in a career transition, we might get into the mindset of, well, I just need a job, any job, so I'm just going to throw my resume out to all different people and it doesn't matter what job it is. And I definitely understand that concern and feeling like it doesn't matter, I just want to work. But you're going to be more successful and it's going to be a more sustainable job if you can really take a look at what are the values that you're looking for in a company, in a job, as well as what are your specific goals for this transition. Is it to get a higher level position and be promoted, or is it really a total pivot into a new industry? Next slide, please. All right, so one of the things to think about while you're going through a career transition is to stay relevant and adaptable through the process. So while you're in the industry, if you are deciding to stay in that industry or go out of it, it's really important to still bring your A game. If you are currently working, it can be hard when you know you're looking to get out to stay in the game, but I encourage you to do that. Really continue to learn and adapt to new technology. I think especially with everything that's happened, people are looking to see what were you able to learn from that experience? What technology did you adapt to during that time? Especially if there may be certain jobs that are moving into an online or remote space now. You do want to be blending some of your perspectives from however long you've been with the company or an industry, and blend that with the new ideas that are coming in. I know that sometimes it can feel like in certain areas it's us versus them, you know, the people that have been around the block a few times, and then the new grads that are coming in acting like they know everything. But it's important to really share with each other and share those ideas so that you can blend those perspectives and bring that into your job search, so that when people are asking you about what perspective you bring, you can touch on that. Mentoring others is a great way to show leadership within your industry, and it's also a great opportunity to network. While we may be seeking mentors ourselves, any chance that we can give back and be in that type of relationship, that also really helps. As I mentioned before, I think it can be helpful to keep a journal of successes and as well as strengths, to really keep track of all of the things that you're accomplishing. This is really important because sometimes we forget how much work we do. It's really important to keep a note of all of that. Otherwise, we might forget that we gave a presentation to a UMass alumni panel, and that would be really important information to maybe share with somebody someday. Especially if you're really busy and accomplish a lot of things within your job, it's really important to keep track, keep data points so that you can reflect those in your resume, in your cover letter, and of course in the interview. And then lastly, stay open to feedback. So as you are growing within an industry or looking to maybe pivot or transition within or outside of an industry, just really be open to that feedback that you're receiving from supervisors, from colleagues, because the more that you show that you're adaptable, the more likely that employers are going to be willing to bring you onto their team. Next slide, please. So then in the job search, some ways to stay relevant and adaptable. I know that some questions that came up before this panel started was about how do I talk about years of experience on a resume, or what if people are going to judge me based on my age and things like that. So I'm going to try to address some of that here. So one of the things to think about when you're looking at a resume is, or when you're developing your resume, is how many years of experience are needed for the job that you're applying to. If they say that we want someone with 5 years experience and you have 20, if you say that you have 20, they might automatically think that you're overqualified for that position. So you're not lying if you say you have over 5 years of experience, right? You have, maybe you have 20, but you're matching the description and what they're looking for. So that's just something to kind of note, and also to decide how much of your experience you want to include, which kind of brings us to the next point of you really want to share recent and relevant experience or selected accomplishments. So again, if you have been working in an industry or just working in general for a long time, you might want to really showcase all of the things that you've done over your career, but unless it's specific and transferable to wherever you're trying to transition to, it's really important to really tailor the resume into something that maybe says your selected accomplishments within your experience, and not a chronological history of all of your experience. The same thing can be true with how much experience you choose to include. So whether it's the last 10 years of experience, perhaps, to demonstrate, again, you're showing, I've worked longer than this, but this is what I want you to see. This is what I've been doing most recently. We're going to talk a lot about networking. This is so important in the search. So really make sure that you're finding those connections in any way you can. It's not just networking within your industry or within your company or anything like that. It's really networking with anyone. It could be a friend, it could be somebody you volunteered with before. You just never know where opportunity may lie. And especially right now that many of us are connected online, there are so many ways to network virtually as well. So that's going to be really important to keep in mind as well. You do want to articulate your long-term goals, as well as really focus on time management and self-care. So with articulating your long-term goals, this can sometimes come up with if someone thinks like, oh, are you just coming here but you're going to leave in a few years because you want to retire, or this is just a stepping stone to the next thing, is really to be able and ready to articulate why that specific company, what are you interested in, how does that integrate with your long-term goals. And lastly, just to touch on time management and self-care, it is so important as you go through this process to really make sure that you're looking at how much time are you spending on your applications, because you do want them to be tailored, but you also want to be efficient and put out enough applications to be getting noticed. And as mentioned, this can be a very stressful time. So really paying attention to your self-care. It's so important to pay attention to that. So next slide, please. Okay, so really the name of the game is to add value of perspective and bring openness to change. So think about that as you are developing your cover letter, as you're developing your resume, and as you're preparing for the interview. If you're going through a career transition, you're bringing that perspective, which is so amazing and so valuable, and you really want to believe in that and be able to speak to that. And you also want to be able to speak to that openness to change and learn and grow still, even though you may have many years of experience in that area. Next slide. All right, so lastly on my section is just talking briefly about motivation. So how do we stay motivated in this search? Career transitions really can be stressful, but they can also be fun. So it's really important to kind of seek out what are the parts of the job search that do bring you joy. Is it looking for new and fun positions that that's the thing that energizes you, like, oh, I could do something different, and that's really exciting. But maybe the stressful part is writing cover letters. So you want to be balancing your time so that you can stay motivated and really try to make the most of the experience. And really, again, know what energizes you and know what drains you so that you can use your time efficiently in that way. As I mentioned earlier, finding a support network and other coping strategies will allow you to stay the course when things get tough. So it's important to take breaks. So this may just mean taking a break in the day. I know a lot of people say looking for a job is a full-time job, but it's really important to sometimes take breaks. It's not sustainable to be staring at a computer all day, which I know many of us do anyway, but you still need to stand up and walk around. But you also might take a break from the search itself. So just be aware of if you really feel like you're hitting a wall, you might just take a couple weeks off if you have the ability to do that if you're currently working, so that you can come back to it with a fresh perspective. You know, getting outside, getting in nature, doing any of the things that you can do to really center yourself so that you can stay the course. I know that it can be discouraging, but the name of the game is trying to find ways that things that bring you joy and things that bring you that motivation is going to be what helps you get through the career transition process. And that's it for me.
Okay, great. Thank you, Emily. I think we're going to transition over to Rochelle. Nope, I think you're still on mute. Oh, there you go.
Hi, everyone. Are you able to see me?
Yes, we're good to go. So sorry about that. Let me bring your back. There we go. All right, you're good to go.
All right. Thanks so much, Joe. Well, first off, thank you so much for inviting me to speak with all of you today. I'm so happy to be speaking with you. And we are definitely in unprecedented times right now. And there's really no better time than the present to really be thinking about your skills and the experiences that you can offer organizations. So thank you to the UMass Alumni Association for putting this forum together for us. So during my time with you, what I'd like to focus on is really all about getting the job that you want. So I'll focus on three key areas: tailoring your materials for the job that you want. We'll be talking a little bit about transferable skills, which I know Emily touched on as well. And then I'll also be touching on how to stay engaged and connected within your communities. Next slide, please. So when thinking about tailoring your materials for the job that you want, this really needs to be an intentional, activity or method, because when you tailor your materials, you're really ensuring that your credentials are seen as an exact or close to an exact fit for every position that you apply. So first, what's a really good idea is to really start by creating a master resume that houses every single job, education, volunteer, and professional position that you have held. And this version could be several pages long. But then next, once you've found that position that you just have to have and have to apply for, you'll want to really take the time to review all of the requirements and skills required for the position and ask yourself, what skills, experiences, and abilities are required or preferred for this role? And then you'll want to really pick out the key words and phrases from the posting and the company's website that appear to be themes throughout. And then you'll move on to creating your tailored resume. And now this version of your resume will be much shorter than your master resume. In this version, you're going to weed out the positions that aren't relevant to the posting. If you have 15 or more years of experience, I highly recommend keeping your resume, this version of your tailored resume, to a max of 2 pages in length. And that's if you have 15 years of experience. Recruiters typically take 15 seconds, maybe sometimes less or a little bit more, to scan resumes, and it's pretty much nearly impossible to scan a resume that is longer. Remember that what matters is what have you done lately. So you'll want to really weed out the positions that aren't relevant to this in this particular version of your resume. And also remember that your resume is a billboard that creates interest in you. It's your brand. And be sure to also use keywords mentioned in the posting in this version of your resume. You'll also want to highlight the skills and experiences that are aligned with the company's key focus areas. The key here is that you are aligning experiences and accomplishments that you actually have. So only include position relevant information. And the best way to test each statement in your resume for position relevant information is to ask the question, so what? Put yourself in the interviewer's shoes and potentially your future boss's shoes and see what would be important. So really taking the time to think about it. Lastly, demonstrate with key data. For example, if you're in sales, you might want to mention awards that you have won, like Salesperson of the Year recipient 3 years in a row, or maybe increased sales 50% year after year. Next slide, please. So moving on to transferable skills, I know that Emily touched on this as well, but it's been said that people will switch careers 5 to 7 times during their lifespan and their careers. And as a working professional, how do you pivot and do something a little bit different, especially when your experience has been heavily focused on one industry or a particular subject matter? So switching careers or making adjustments for your next move means that you'll really have to do a deep dive to showcase your transferable skills. According to Indeed, transferable skills are also known as portable skills, which are qualities that can be transferred from one job to another. You likely already possess many transferable skills that various organizations will value. Next slide, please. And so I'd like to just take the time to, really start to evaluate some transferable skills that you might possess. So really, to get started with evaluating your transferable skills, check the posting or social media for the skills that are referenced in the positions that you intend to apply for. And review your resume and other materials like performance reviews that you have, and really do a deep dive of the skills that you can potentially bring. And ask yourself, what skills can you offer an organization that will solve an organization's problems? Is it project management? Is it sales? Is it training? Is it public speaking? You'll want to really showcase those transferable skills that you have that can solve an organization's challenges or problems. And highlight the skills that are quantifiable. And this is important because they can be measured. For example, operations, project management, these are all skills that can be measured with numbers and data. And really, take the time to know your value and your worth for every position that you apply for. Again, you really want to highlight and showcase the transferable skills that demonstrate that you can do the job and can meet the challenges. And lastly, what I'd like to say here is to really take the time to also showcase your successful achievements that really line up with those skills. And this will ensure that you're getting a position that you enjoy doing. It's important that your skills can be listed on your resume. So one of the things that I sometimes advise is that perhaps you can have a skills list at the top of your resume under your objective or summary, and that can be a short skill list that, again, you're going to be able to have data that's tied to those skills listed on your resume. Next slide. And so I wanted to just review, an example of some transferable skills that I thought might be helpful. And I also saw a question that connected to this. So I spent years working in the publishing industry and would often hire candidates who either wanted to switch into publishing and hadn't worked in the industry before, or they were looking to just make a slight pivot. And so, let's say, for example, you worked as a senior editor and you'd like to make a career switch into a different industry. Although most of your experience might be related to publishing, like copy editing your authors or managing the book's design or collaborating with publicists and managing events, you have probably built a wealth of transferable skills over the course of your career in publishing. And this would enable you to thrive in many other industries. For example, you likely have advanced communication skills, writing, project management skills from years of moving books through the different publishing houses. And these skills could translate to a role in marketing, journalism, or even corporate communications. So no matter which path you choose, the transferable skills and experiences that you've gathered in publishing will likely benefit you in your next role, and you'll be able to take them. And that's why they're considered portable skills, because you'll be able to take them from position to position, whether you switch industries or not. Next slide, please. So lastly, what I was going to speak with you about, and I know Bob will be touching on this as well, and so did Emily, but really taking the time to leverage your networks. And this, I mean, goes hand in hand with everything that we do and anything that we do, really making sure that we're staying connected and leveraging our networks regardless of where we are. So we're doing that by staying engaged and connected. Now, let's say you went on a job interview and maybe you weren't selected for the job that you interviewed for, but you met them and they know about your experience, and maybe you're not a fit for that position, but you could be a fit for a future position. So don't leave on a poor note. Stay positive for other opportunities and definitely keep the door open. And everyone knows someone else. Maybe that good friend that you know has a good connection that would be helpful for you, even if you don't tell them that you're job searching. But letting people know what your passions are and that, you know, any recent trainings that you've completed, and that can help to inform people about you and your skills and passion, and that could lead to other doors opening. And lastly, maximize where you build your network. The time that you spend just, you know, on an average day doing your daily routines, not so much right now because we're all pretty much stuck at home, but the times that you've spent in your community, at your child's soccer practice or games, place of worship, or the gym, talking with others can lead to opportunities to giving someone else a lead for a job, or can help you grow in your own career. So thanks, everyone.
All right, great. Thank you, Rochelle. So I think, Bob, you're up, and let me, you should be able to, all right, you should be all set, Bob.
All right. Hey, thank you very much, Joe. And thank you, Lindsay. And I thank Rochelle because this, hers is a good segue into what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to be talking about online networking, whereas she was talking about face-to-face networking. And so let's make one thing clear, is that face-to-face networking is more productive and more efficient than just simply networking online. So I think that LinkedIn is a great supplement to online networking. What I'm going to be talking about, and I'm assuming that most of you have a profile. I wish I could see you raise your hand if you are on LinkedIn and if you're using it proactively, because in order to make LinkedIn successful, you have to be proactive. You have to engage with your network, but first you need to have a network. So I'm going to talk about creating a focused network, where to find quality connections. This is sort of like connecting 101. And then once you find someone you want to connect with, you need to send a personalized invitation. Oh, good to see, Stephen. So, you know, it's very good to, you know, want to engage with people when you're on LinkedIn. So often people ask me, so who do I connect with? I mean, I will look at their profile and I'll see they have 80 connections. And I'm thinking, ooh, they need to be up near more like 250. And this is right out of the job, 250, 300. And then eventually you want to get to 500 plus. So who do you first connect with? Well, if you look at this pyramid And really the more important people are working your way up. The people with whom you worked, so your former colleagues, supervisors, vendors, VARs, OEMs, these are the people you want to reach out first on LinkedIn, okay? Because they know your work, they know your personality. And then, and this is getting more into your stretch zone, you're going to want to connect with people at your target companies. And any career advisor out there will tell you that you really need to have a list of companies for which you'd like to work. And what Emily was talking about in terms of the values that the companies offer, and you know, even something as simple as the commute, salary, and so forth, I would say that you should have a list of about 10 or 15 target companies. And you want to reach out to the hiring managers at those companies. Okay. And I need to mention also that you should reach out to recruiters, because I think any recruiter worth his or her salt is going to want to connect with pretty much anyone. And so now you're getting more into your stretch zone when you're connecting with people in the same occupation, the same industry. So for instance, if you are an accountant and you want to connect with accountants in your industry, maybe it's manufacturing, medical devices, whatever it may be, then you really have that common connection. You're really like-minded, as I like to say. Now, here's where you're really reaching out. When you're connecting with people in the same occupation, but a different industry. And accountants, they can do this fairly easily because accountants can work across many different industries. And lastly, and maybe this shouldn't be last, are your alumni, because you do have a common bond there. The common bond there is that you went to the same school. And though even though you and I, all of you out there, all 56 of you, or so, however many of you are, we went to UMass Amherst, and oh my gosh, did I pronounce the H? I think I did. But in any case, we all went to the same school, so there's a special connection there, simply because we went to the same school. So these are the people that you need to connect with. Now, how you go about connecting with people is what I'm going to show you. And I'm going to first explain that the search engine on LinkedIn is very powerful. It can be your best friend. And then I'm going to show you how you can use tabs once you've decided who you want to connect with. And I'm not talking about who you know, but I'm talking about people of certain occupations. And then I'm going to show you who really is your best friend, and that is find all. Okay, this is a very powerful feature. So let me see if I can switch the screen. I hope I don't screw up the works here, Joe. All right, can everyone see that? Can you see LinkedIn?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, thank you. All right, good. You're with me. You haven't fallen asleep. Okay, so what I've decided to do is I want to connect with project managers, because I'm a project manager and I want to, build my network of project managers. I really do believe that your network needs to be focused. So I've typed in project manager in the search bar. You can see right there. And what I can do is, and I'm going to be connecting with people. So there are 28,900,000 project managers. I don't think I have the time to go through all 28 million project managers. So I'm going to really narrow my search. And I'm going to search for second degree connections, because I'm already connected with my first degree connections, and the third degree connections are just too far away. So that brings me down to 597,000. Okay, not manageable enough though. Now I'm going to look by location, and I'm going to choose, I'd like to choose local. So Greater Boston. I can type that in because it wasn't one that I could select from. So that drops me down to 61,000. And then I can look by current companies. And so one company that's really big in this area is Kronos. Oh, did they change their look? Okay, so now I'm down to 302,000. Now here is where I said all filters is your friend, because all of this I could do with all filters. In other words, I didn't need to select the company, I didn't need to select the area, and I didn't need to select my degree of connections. I could just go to all filters, and there you see that I can select degree of connections, the area in which I'm looking, at the company itself, and I can also add, if I want, a school, and I'm going to select UMass Amherst. Okay, and so I'm going to just go by those filters for now and see how many I have. So I have 13 people who follow those criteria. And I think that's good. I mean, I think that's a manageable number of people to look for. And so what I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to look under their name and their title, and I'm going to see who we have as mutual connections. So Pam and I have Sarah as a mutual connection. Richard and I have, let's see, I think we have a number of people. Didn't want to click on that one, though. Okay, so we have 3 people with whom we're both connected. And the one that I know best is Marie, because she happened to be a former client of mine. And so I'm going to look at not only the people who I'd want to connect with, but also if we have anyone in common, because this is going to come into play later on when I talk about how to send invites. Let's look at Donna. Okay, so you get the idea. So Donna and I are mutually connected to these people. Okay, so I'm going to connect with Richard. And I'm going to, let's see, who did he and I have in common? Okay, so we had my favorite, Marie. Marie is going to be my go-to person. And so I'm simply going to go to Richard and hit connect. Now, what I can do is, and this is what a lot of people do, and this is not the right thing to do, is I could click send now. If I were to do that, then my invite would go off to Richard with a default message. Something like, Bob McIntosh would like you to be part of his professional network. And really that doesn't show any creativity and is, in my mind, quite lazy. So what I want to do is I want to add a note. Now, here's where I'm going to be talking about the right way to connect, because I've shown you how to find people, and I'm going to tell you now some of the ways that you can invite them. So I'm going to get off of LinkedIn. By LinkedIn, I'm going to miss you. And Joe, I'm going to click stop sharing. Whoops. I think I messed this up. Joe, you want to get us back there?
Yep. Hang on one second.
All right, thanks, buddy. Okay, so trust me, Find All is going to be your best friend. And now I want to just show you some of the types of invites that you can send. The first of which, and which is probably not going to benefit you a great deal, you will garner less results, is the cold invite. Whereas a cold invite is just simply that. It's like a knock on the door. So you send out something to this effect. Okay, so hi, Lindsay. I came across your profile on LinkedIn and I see that we're both in the business of helping people find jobs. I also noticed that we're UMass alums. It would be great to connect. Now, I don't know if Lindsay would accept my invitation based on this alone, but I thought that since we both went to UMass, I went much longer ago than she did, but in any case, we both went to UMass. So I thought maybe that would be a great way to send an invite. But an even more effective way is by invites with a reference. So in this case, it reads, hi, Lindsay, you and I are both connected with George Mann, also a UMass alumnus. He suggested that I reach out to connect with you. Let me know if I can help, can be of assistance in any way. And so really try to end your message on a positive note, and on a note that says, I'd like to help you if you can help me, because really networking is a two-way street. And then so finally, probably the best way to reach out to someone is through an introduction. And it would go something like this. It seems like ages since we've communicated. The reason I'm writing to you to ask if you would send an introduction to Lindsay, I would like to connect with her to get her take on working in academia, okay? And so I could send this through LinkedIn, and this is the way I chose to show you, but probably a more effective way would be for me to send an email. So let's say it was Lori, for instance, send an email to her, because people are more likely to check their emails than they will check LinkedIn. So, you know, in conclusion, it's really how you invite people to be part of your network that makes a difference. And you have to be selective, because if you just accept anyone who invites you to their network, or you just hit, you know, send, then your network is not going to be focused. You're not going to have a good audience, an audience that is really interested in hearing what you have to write or what you have to say, or interested in you. So I thank you very much. And, you know, if you'd like to follow me on LinkedIn, you know where to find me. It's Bob McIntosh. Just type that in, and there's the follow button. Thanks, Joe.
So I think we're going to have a little bit of Q&A. So if our panelists, if we could bring our cameras back up, and I think Lindsay will take us through a couple questions that have come in through the chat.
Yes, thank you, Joe. So we do have a few questions that have come in through the chat. One question people asked is specifically about applying for jobs and using online tools such as applying through LinkedIn, applying through Glassdoor, you know, jobs.com type things. Can you talk a little bit about the effectiveness of using those type sites, or your opinion about the best way to apply? And that's for anybody who'd like to answer.
Well, I personally believe that applying online is the least effective way of finding a job. So if you want to talk about the most effective way of applying online, I would say that going to the company's website would be it. And when you use LinkedIn's job feature, you either have the option of going to their company's website or Easy Apply. There's been a lot of bad press about Easy Apply. Easy Apply, I mean, the reason why that Easy Apply is maybe detrimental to a job seeker's success is because Easy Apply sends your information right to recruiters, and there are certain bits of information that may hurt your chances, such as, do you have any connections with the recruiter? If you don't have any connections with the recruiter, then that person isn't going to think, ooh, so I can't go to Bob's connections and I can't check him out before I even talk to him. And that's what some recruiters will do. They'll check you out before they even talk to you. So, but the thing though is that companies, companies purchase Easy Apply for a reason. They really want to see the quality of your profile, and they want to see that tailored resume, as Rochelle was talking about. You really need to send along a tailored resume with, if you're going to use Easy Apply.
That's a good suggestion. Thank you. Anybody else have any thoughts about specific other websites for applying? Emily, maybe?
Sure. Yeah. So a few things. One is that I do believe in kind of having a varied search. While some jobs may be posted on LinkedIn, there may be some company that decided to only post on Indeed. And so I do think it can be helpful to have a few different search places open. Certainly going directly to the company website to apply. I agree with Bob there that applying directly through the website is great. Another thing I've heard from someone who used to be a recruiter and used LinkedIn as a tool was the Easy Apply became a little bit overwhelming, as they would get so many applications through Easy Apply that it was harder to sift through. But the people that went directly through the company website, that was maybe a more manageable stack. And so that can maybe increase your chances of getting noticed there.
Oh, Rochelle, you are on mute.
Thank you.
Sure.
I worked for a human services company before moving to Babson. We implemented Easy Apply because we were hiring about 1,000 employees a month at that organization. So the easy apply allows you to really move a lot of volume and to quickly get candidates in and fill positions and then move on to the next. So in some ways, easy apply, although it's not the ideal way, especially for professional positions, it is useful to organizations at times.
Thank you for your insight on that, something that the average job seeker may not know. So another question now, naturally, we are in the middle of a pandemic here. And for a lot of folks who had started a career transition before COVID-19 hit us, their search was disruptive. And what other advice can you give to help get back on track quicker?
I think now, especially with a lot of organizations there, I know my organization, we quickly went into freeze mode. So all positions have essentially been frozen aside from essential positions. So I think now is a really good time to be doing some of the things that, there are companies that are still hiring. It's not gloom and doom. There definitely are a lot of companies hiring still. But if someone is finding that there are, there aren't a lot of opportunities out there, this is a really good time to be able to do some of the things that Bob highlighted, and also review like values and strengths, and really looking at the skills that you can bring to an organization so that you can take this time to reflect, if you can afford to do that, to really take the time to reflect. But again, there are companies that are hiring, so making sure that you're taking the time to really review your skills, the skills that you bring, and presenting those so that they know what you have to offer.
To add on to that, if you are particularly interested in a company that maybe is on a hiring freeze, and maybe you're in a position to, if you were, let's say, staying where you're at, like you were planning this transition and then you've also paused in your search, is eventually some of those places will rehire or open back up their hiring. And so another thing that you can be doing is staying connected, doing some of the networking that we've been talking about this evening, and really stay in touch, because I think while hiring is frozen, networking isn't frozen, and people aren't frozen. We can all still connect and talk to each other, and really build those connections. I think right now is a really important time to stay connected, keep those networks fresh and connected, and don't lose touch with people that maybe you were in touch with before, just because things have slowed down a little bit.
That's a great point too. I know we all are seeming to spend a lot more time on our computers these days, so it's a great time to reach out, because here I am, you know where to find me. So we do have a couple more questions that have come in, specifically for folks looking to transition into a new industry. What is the best way to identify the specific job title that you're actually looking for when looking for a job? Perhaps you know the industry or general realm, but how do you know to look for project manager or such?
I'd like to start with this one, and that is throw job titles out the window, because really what's most important is not the title, but it's what you do. So if you were to look for jobs in terms of your areas of expertise, your transferable skills instead of a job title, then you'll come up with job titles from Indeed, Simply Hired, Dice, Snag a Job, Monster, LinkedIn, whatever it may be. Forget the job titles, because job titles sometimes are so crazy. It's like, I knew a guy who worked at IBM and his job title was Director of Innovation. And I'm like, dude, what does that mean? He's like, oh, I was just a project manager. So really job titles are just, they're overblown. So that's my advice.
And there are so many technical aspects out there, and I'm not like a tech whiz by any stretch of the imagination, but there are so many ways that companies will use search engine optimization to be able to put things out there. So like Bob was saying, like throwing out all of those keywords will essentially bring you the results that you're looking for, and then that will essentially lead you to positions that could be of interest when you're looking to make that pivot. So really, I know there are a lot of tools out there that people can use to like play with words, like Wordle and like other tools that people can use, but really throwing words out there and seeing what you get back when you put those words out there in your search.
That's a great suggestion. So another question coming in, we do certainly want to focus today on our experienced professionals. And what tips do you have for how to sell your experience versus a job that lists MBA preferred? If you don't have that MBA, but you do have ample experience, what can you do to position yourself ahead of the pack?
No one wants to take this one.
Yeah.
Well,
any
no,
thoughts?
I mean, unfortunately.
A lot to digest.
Yeah.
Sure.
Do you want to go, Rochelle?
So I'd say, like, in terms of, because I know that, like, the education piece is sometimes, it looks like a factor that can weed you out, but I don't want people to be discouraged when they see, oh, it requires an MBA or that's preferred. When they say preferred, that means it's not required. So if you have, let's say, 5 years of experience and you've, sold, 1,000 widgets, and then put that experience out there, because that is what they want to see. They want to see what you have done. It's like the Janet Jackson song, "What have you done for me lately?" Like, they really want to see what you have done. So I think to focus on that, as opposed to, oh, they're saying that, this degree is preferred. If you switch that to required, I think, like, being that I've been in HR for quite some time now, even when you see required, sometimes there's like there's wiggle room there, even when you see the word required, because depending on what you bring to the table, that education requirement and your skills might trump that education requirement.
I'm so glad you said that. I really am, because I've met many people who are at the top of their game in their occupation, but they don't have a bachelor's degree. And some employers, what they use that degree for is to weed them out rather than qualify them. So disqualify before qualify them, which is a shame, because they have more knowledge and more experience in their field than those who are just coming out of school with a degree. That being said, though, if, for instance, you're a project manager and you require a PMP, then it would behoove you to try to get some training in that area. And you can get training through the state if you qualify. Mass Hire, Lowell Career Center, for instance, the Mass Hire system overall, they do provide training for people who are dislocated workers and before their 20th week of unemployment. So sometimes it does help to have those letters next to your name, even though you're well qualified to do the job.
Emily, did you want to add anything?
I feel like I had a thought and it's slipping my mind, but I do think that a lot of what they've spoken to is true, is like really highlighting that experience. Again, networking can be helpful if somebody knows you, or if you can connect with somebody that may help them to give you a chance in an interview, even if you're not meeting those qualifications. A lot of times job descriptions will also say something along the lines of, like, let's say an MBA is required, they'll say MBA or this many years of experience. So again, just that note to maybe not get discouraged, to think of creative ways to demonstrate how you have the skill sets that they're looking for, even if that company is thinking the MBA is what helps you develop some of those skills. If you can kind of showcase, well, instead of an MBA, I've been working my way up the ladder, that may help your case.
That's a great point. So we have one final question here, and then we will move towards the end of our presentation here. If a posting does not specifically list a salary, is there a tactful way to try to find out the salary range you're looking at before you invest the time in the process of the application and potentially interview to follow?
I think the short answer to that is no. That's if you're going to ask the recruiter or HR or even the hiring manager. But I think what you can do is you can get a general idea of your value in the labor market by using sites like salary.com, PayScale, Glassdoor. But generally, if you bring up salary or even benefits before they offer you the job and ask what your requirements are, then that's pretty much taboo. Um, I mean, that's what I've been hearing and going by for the past 15 years. I don't know if Rochelle feels differently. What if you were to, what if someone were to ask your employer, oh, what does this job pay? Or can you tell me the salary range for this position? How would that person, how would your employer feel about that?
Yeah, I think for me, typically it is seen as a bit abrupt, to just right off the bat, like come off. I know, compensation, rewards, and benefits, all of those things are important, but I think when people are looking and assessing positions, you're really looking at the value that you bring, the value that working for this organization can bring. So I think if you kind of tailor that focus to what would working at this company mean to me, as opposed to right out the gate, like looking at what salary do they offer, because frankly most companies don't list their salaries online unless it's like working for a state organization, or maybe some other companies do, but most often they don't. And typically for me as a recruiter, the salary conversation comes up during a phone interview, or a web facing, like a video conferencing interview. So that usually comes up during the initial conversation. So it's not like we wait to like have that conversation later down the road, because honestly, I don't want to waste your time, nor do I want to waste your time if it's not a match, from a salary perspective. But I'd say be patient with the salary conversation.
All right. Well, thank you all for answering those questions. I believe we have a couple more slides to share here with you. So as Joe mentioned at the beginning of our presentation today, we do offer quite a few other career resources in addition to webinars like this one. We have a program called the Alumni Advisors that I hope you'll all take a minute to sign up for today, which is an online platform of alumni who have all volunteered to share career advice, share their experience, and oftentimes help with resume reviews, informational interviews, etc. So feel free, it's free, and you can make a new connection right after this. We also do have career counselors that we work with at the Alumni Association. Each person we work with has different specializations, so chances are there's someone who could be very helpful to you. The first consultation for our alumni is free, and then after that you can work with the counselor specifically. They each have their own offerings, so more on that on the website. We also do have events that are always listed at umassalumni.com/events, and that's where you'll continue to find virtual events such as this and other interesting webinars coming up. And then in addition, we do record our webinars so that you are able to view them at any point in the future. Feel free to check out all of our on-demand webinars also at umassalumni.com/career, and you'll be able to find all of these resources there.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Lindsay, for helping us out. And thank you, all of you, for joining us today. Before we give the last goodbye, if we just wanted to have Bob and Emily and Rochelle to kind of offer maybe a parting thought for the folks that are attending. So if Bob, if you want to go ahead and offer maybe some final words of wisdom.
So what I presented today probably isn't as important as what the other two presented, and especially when Emily said take care of yourself. I really believe that you need to take care of yourself. You cannot give up on this job search, because the tide will turn. We don't know when, but if you give up, then the battle's lost. So just hang in there and be safe.
And Rochelle, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, similar to what Bob said, this isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. So definitely take the time to really evaluate all that you have to offer organizations, because you are a valued member, productive member. So I'd say definitely take the time to evaluate all of the skills that you offer.
Great. And Emily.
Thanks again to everyone for attending. My final thoughts would be, as mentioned, really take care of yourself. Remember your strengths. Again, I know it can be hard in this time, and feel it can be a hit to your confidence at times, but really remember your value, your strengths, and all of the things that you can bring to a company. Keep up that positive momentum, and eventually something will come through. So we're here for you, and we're rooting for you.
Excellent. Well, again, thank you all so much. Thank you to those of you that attended. Thank you so much to our panelists. We really do appreciate you making the time to join us today, and just have a great conversation tonight. We do look forward to seeing everyone at some future events. So we hope you are all staying safe, doing well, and we will see you soon. Thanks a lot, and go UMass.